Internet! How you been? In my first entry, I talked about wanting to learn all of the things. Here's how I think that's gonna manifest in this vlog going forward. I grew up watching murder mysteries with my mom, but my favorite of all time was Sherlock Holmes. I mean, come on, who doesn't love Sherlock Holmes? Mainly because it was the first time that geek and nerd completely intersected. Because Sherlock Holmes, he was a nerd, right? He delved, he researched, he burrowed, he completely obsessed over things, which is just sexy. But Sherlock Holmes the story, Sherlock Holmes the property, is a total geek fest.
Watson, I think there's something wrong with my pipe.
So yeah, everyone here is a geek, and that just makes me want to nerd out about geek stuff and geek culture. So, what we're going to be talking about here is the nerdier side of geekery. We're going to explore and investigate and think laterally on geek subjects. Basically, this vlog is for people who want to go Sherlock on geek culture. And speaking of Sherlock, I might as well just skip right ahead to ninjas. What? Any conversation can at any point jump immediately to one of three subjects: Hitler, ninjas, the Millennium Falcon. So before we delve in, one thing that needs to be said is the ninja of today, the ninja of pop culture, completely different from the ninja of history. The concept of ninja was actually imported from China. In fact, the word ninja comes from ni and sha, which are two Chinese characters. The Japanese word for ninja is actually shinobi, which means to steal away. But when Western society and Japanese society started intermingling, ninja became the more dominant word because it was frankly just easier for white people to say. So ninjas at their very primal stages were actually kind of terrorists. These were farmers, dispossessed, malcontent, who were angry at the aristocracy, and this was really their only way to fight back. So they employed what was considered at the time new tactics. They used stealth, agitation, guerrilla tactics. They were rogues, basically. Picking locks, getting fat loops. So this concept eventually was co-opted by a few clans who then codified it into an actual discipline. And that discipline sort of became a genuine official ninja profession. But here's where things start to get interesting. Very little is actually known about ninja. Everything we have comes from myth and legend. For instance, picture a ninja in your head, probably wearing black, right? No! Stop it! In kabuki theater, stagehands wore all black because it was culturally accepted that anyone dressed in all black was not just not seen on stage, you were literally supposed to ignore them. This allowed stagehands to adjust set pieces, set down a prop, fix whatever they need to without disturbing the ongoing action on stage. But then somebody had this idea, which must have been ridiculously edgy for the time, where a story called for a ninja assassination or a ninja taking someone out of the equation, and instead of using an actor to do that assassination, they had a stagehand do it. So someone who was completely culturally ingrained in your brain to not exist suddenly came out of nowhere and interacted with the story on stage, and they had never done that before. Ninjas used disguises so they could blend into the society around them and do their work unseen. Using a stagehand was a metaphor for this, but it must have been completely terrifying. Be like the first time something jumped out at you in a horror film. Kabuki! As a theater technique, this is fascinating and awesome, but it probably also drove home the idea that first, ninjas are terrifying and scary, but also really awesome. This is probably the first best example of pop culture interpreting ninja, and it was so impactful that we still think of ninja wearing black today. But I find it interesting that we still believe and perpetuate this idea of ninja wearing black when them dressing as civilians makes way more sense. And the whole ninja wearing black thing isn't the only thing we've perpetuated that's a complete myth.
Let me clue you in.
Samurai versus ninja. Total myth. Samurai could actually become ninja if they wanted to. It wasn't really a class. Anyone could be one. Once you were a ninja, you were for hire. You were a mercenary. So if you were ever fighting a samurai, it was pure coincidence. There was no blood feud. It's not like pirate versus ninja. Ninjutsu? Not a martial art. Taijutsu, kenjutsu, jujutsu, these are martial arts. Ninjutsu was a strategy, a set of tactics and skills that you were placed on top of pre-existing martial art disciplines. But the biggest myth of all, ninjas weren't assassins.
What?
At least, not necessarily. There's one document, just one, that talks about the assassination of an enemy general, but that's it. Ninjas were often used in warfare, and they had four main functions: scout, spy, agitator, and surprise attacker. I say surprise attacker, they ambushed enemy soldiers. This is not assassination, but you can see where maybe that got confused. So because of things like stealth, trickery, and ambushing, you can kind of invent this idea of assassination, whether it's true or not. All of these myths persist, and I'm not complaining about that. That's actually really cool. I want you to just remember that, put a pin in it for later. Western pop culture first got a hold of the idea of ninja from James Bond in the 60s. So after this, ninjas started popping up everywhere, and Primarily, they tended to be the bad guy, but they were still seen as these really cool badasses. Fortunately, Sho Kosugi kept things from going too off track. Sho Kosugi was Japanese, and though his ninja movies were a little campy, he brought ninjas to both sides of the story. Because he reintroduced a moral compass to the ninja archetype, suddenly ninja were cool, they were mythic, and they were noble. Boom, we were hooked. But I think what really got us hooked on the idea of ninjas was the fact that despite they had this sort of mysticism about them, they were normal people. Anyone could be a ninja, just like in history. These were normal, regular people who had honed a skill. They kind of reminded us of ourselves. They were oppressed people who suddenly struck back at their enemies. I mean, who's gonna understand that any more than geeks? So it was like the idea of being Luke Skywalker or Harry Potter, but you didn't have to be born with some kind of birthright. You could train to it. It was a skill. It was something you could learn and hone by research and study. Batman was kind of a ninja, but Batman was still a millionaire. You didn't have to be a millionaire to be a ninja, so in a way, ninja was sort of the most democratic superhero ever. Even if that's not strictly speaking accurate, you can understand the appeal. So in a way, we kind of need the ninja we've invented, more than we need the ninja of history. Entertainment of pop culture is what sort of crafts perception, but we have to keep in mind that as artists and creators, we craft the entertainment. So really, we kind of made our own superheroes. And the cool thing is, we didn't even do this on purpose, it just sort of evolved that way. So for all the talk I've done about ninja, really what my point is that ninja is proof that artists create perception. So now I don't have to do an entire vlog about witches, because I can now succinctly tell you Harry Potter completely changed our current perception of witches. Let's just dwell on that for a moment. Geek culture can make its own mythology, and we're a part of that. So I'm not talking about geek culture in terms of the last couple of years or even to my childhood. I'm talking about geek culture in the last 100 so years, and it took that long for the ninja myth to evolve to what we know it to be today. But it only took Harry Potter about 10 years to do that same thing to witches and wizards. I mean, Tolkien lamented the lack of English folklore, and so he just made his own. And now it's a part of all of our lexicons. I mean, that is insane. So as much as this vlog was about ninjas, it's also a reproach of our geek cynicism. So the next time you think you've seen it all, remember, you are on this side of a geek event horizon, and something that's gonna just blow your mind could arrive at any second. And that's why I've been talking about ninjas. So other than ninjas, and of course Harry Potter, what are some of your favorite examples where pop culture has completely changed the concept of a thing? Leave your examples in the comments below, or we're gonna start a discussion over in the Geek and Sundry forums. What's really cool is that I can actually do that. I can connect directly to you. We even have an entire forum dedicated completely to community creations. I mean, that's awesome. Because the unique thing about geek culture is we shape the evolution of it just by participating. So yeah, we are geeks and we're taking all of this in, but we're also giving back in a way that you don't typically find in any other community. I can't wait to have this conversation with you. So until then, go create, vlog, write fan fiction, start a Wikipedia, be a fan, and don't be ashamed to be a fan. So that's it. No more ninja stuff, except for maybe one more little part. See you next time. Nerd you later. Good talking to you. You know, goodbye. Me disappearing was the last ninja part. You're still here. It's over. Vote for me, I guess. Are you lost? Recommendation? There's a bunch of links around. Go to any one of them. Go explore. Go create. I'll see you next week. There's nothing new here. Go.